and welcome to the first of our 2021 live event series here on Nautilus Live. We are so excited to have you here with us. My name is Megan Cook. I'm the manager of Education Partnerships and Programs for Ocean Exploration Trust and part of the Corps of Exploration. For the next 6 months, we're going to be bringing you live expeditions from around the world and also these live event series, which will be a chance to get to know our explorers, learn about our expeditions, preview what you're going to see at sea, and meet some of our inspiring teammates, learn about the science and the technology, the engineering and the history that really excite them. Happy World Ocean Day also. We're so happy to be here with you and to have you here on, whether you're watching on YouTube or watching on Facebook. For World Ocean Day, we celebrate this incredible blue planet. It feeds us, it gives us oxygen, it moves us and our goods all around the world. It stabilizes our climate, fills us with inspiration. So I want to know what your favorite thing about that you are celebrating with World Ocean Day and where you're watching from. So drop them in the comments. Also, if you have questions and comments all throughout the program today, you can send those in just below and we'll be able to pull them in for our guests and presenters today. If you are a regular subscriber or a follower of our Nautilus channels, you know that we love all things ocean. But for World Ocean Day, we wanted to have a bit of a curveball, mix things up, and take you inland for a little bit to the Great Lakes. The Nautilus Live team is starting our 2021 expedition in the center of the continent. And we are using a shore-based expedition without EV Nautilus in the mix for this first few weeks. So leaving our beloved saltwater behind, we're headed up to Michigan to our expedition partners, Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And this isn't the first time that our teams have worked together. So today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the history of exploration in the area and meet some of our teammates that have multiple decades of exploration work on the shoreline, along with the current project that's here today. So without further ado, we're gonna get started. And I first want to introduce you all to Jeff Gray, the superintendent of Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how are you? Happy World Oceans Day to you.
Thank you so much. Happy World Oceans Day. We're gonna just tuck lakes in there and celebrate them today too.
We celebrate it all. We celebrate all part of the same blue planet.
All right, Jeff, tell me a little bit about where you are, and can you introduce me to the lake?
I sure can, yeah. We're in Rogers City right now, which is in Northeast Michigan, up in the top part of Michigan. We're sitting on Lake Huron on the shores of the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Lake Huron is part of the Great Lakes. That system of Great Lakes is over 20% of the world's fresh water. And what makes this area that we're sitting in right here, looking at doing this exploration, is within the sanctuary, there's about 200 historic shipwrecks, which are some of the best preserved shipwrecks in the entire world. And we're working to discover them, research them, and then share them with people so everyone can enjoy them.
All right, Jeff, when did your connection to this place get started? Tell us how you got into this work.
Yeah, August will be 25 years for me working on the Great Lakes, which is amazing to think about. And I've been up here in Thunder Bay for 19 years. And when I started 19 years ago, the very first thing I did was started working with this team, one of the very first projects. So, and it kicked off what was an amazing exploration. And we've learned so much, not just about the shipwrecks and the history, but about the lakes themselves.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that. So let's wind back the clock to that expedition. And also you mentioned shipwrecks, a word that always intrigues all of us. So tell me more.
Yes, yeah. So the Great Lakes, fresh water, that's what makes them so special. And that fresh water, which is so important to people and the shipping and everything else you talked about earlier. But that fresh water really preserves these shipwrecks. They're the best preserved shipwrecks in the world because there's no salt to corrode the iron. There's no marine organisms that eat the organics. So some of these ships are literally ships just sitting on the bottom waiting to be explored. And you can see this magnificent preservation that we have there. And they're great for archaeologists and historians to learn about the past. They're moments frozen in time. And there's no better way to learn about the past than exploring through these shipwrecks. But they're also amazing recreational resources. And what we try to do is connect people so they can go explore them. And we'll talk a little bit more about, Sarah will talk about a little bit more about the different ways that you can get into your sanctuary and experience some of these shipwrecks.
That sounds perfect. Now this is a history, so I want to introduce somebody else and then talk about this expedition from the early 2000s. So hi, Dwight. I'm going to pull in Dwight Coleman, the director of the Inner Space Center and the expedition leader for Ocean Exploration Trust out in Michigan right now. Hey, Dwight.
Hey, Megan, happy World Oceans Day.
Hey there, Dwight.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey.
It's great to be back here.
It's so good to have you both. You two were in Thunder Bay together a couple decades ago. So maybe, Jeff, do you want to talk about what the first expedition that brought OET folks up there to Michigan was? And then, Dwight, you want to talk a little bit about what you remember from that expedition?
Absolutely.
Amazing experiences of my career when Dwight and the team came out with Dr. Ballard. The sanctuary had just been designated, and we were trying to, there's a great picture of us 20 years ago. We had just been designated, and we didn't quite fully understand the magnitude of the resources here. So we had a month of ROV expeditions exploring these shipwrecks. We discovered a new one, but we also explored those that we already knew about. And I had been working in the field for about 8 years by that time, and in that short 3-week period, I learned more about Great Lakes shipwrecks than I had in the entire career before that, because of this amazing technology that OET was able to bring to Lake Huron.
Dwight, tell me a little bit about your experience. What brought you up there at that time?
Yeah, for me, I had really just started working for an organization called the Institute for Exploration with Dr. Robert Ballard. And the Institute for Exploration evolved into what is now the Ocean Exploration Trust. So this is going back 20 years here. We're talking a little bit about history in this program. There I am, a historical shot on the deck of a ship, probably the Lake Guardian in 2001, when we first were using a side scan sonar towfish to explore the lake bed here and look for new shipwreck targets and help document the shipwreck targets that they already knew about. We really lacked the information, the baseline information that Jeff and his team needed to properly document the resources that he was here to protect. And, we established that baseline information in 2001 and recorded and well documented the exact position of dozens of shipwrecks, and even found a few new targets at the time. And then we continued that work in 2002 and came back here with a ship called the RV Connecticut. And I helped lead that expedition, and we were using some robotic vehicle systems for the first time. And some of those vehicle systems are still in use today on the EV Nautilus. So this was one of the first real projects for me under the direction of Robert Ballard. And I had done a few before coming to Thunder Bay, but I was still kind of new at all this stuff. So, and it was high risk at the time. We were using technologies that were really just developed and basically customized for the types of work that we needed to do. And we used ships like the RV Connecticut that you see here, and tow sled like the tow sled Argus, to really collect photographic information, video information, using high definition video cameras that were really just invented for underwater applications at that time. Little Hercules is a ROV that was developed purposely to document shipwrecks. And the Institute for Exploration back in the day did a lot of marine archaeological projects. And this was our first venture into freshwater in the Great Lakes. So we controlled those vehicle systems from the control van, like you saw in that shot there. And that was the dawn of what we're doing now on the Nautilus. It was the early days of making, documenting information underwater and basically sharing that information with the public. So 20 years ago, we've been doing it a long time.
And I think that has set the scientists and the historians and the archaeologists that work on the project was amazing for us. But I think if I reflect back to 20 years, what really made a difference was that ability to share these amazing resources. They're hidden below the waves that most people can't see. And what Dr. Ballard and Dwight brought back, we were able to share with people and tell them just how special this place that we're working to protect is.
Well, we're so happy to be able to bring so many people who are tuned in with us. Hey, if you're on Facebook, hey, if you're on YouTube, we have folks from Hungary and Germany and New Zealand and Ireland and all across North America, the continent with us. So if you have questions for our explorers, drop them down in the comments below. But I guess I have a question, Dwight, for you. What do you remember as one of the most exciting discoveries of this time? I mean, what's it like? What's it feel like to be searching for shipwrecks and heritage sites?
Yeah, well, so we're explorers, and this was an awesome project for us because it was really true exploration. We were going into areas of the sanctuary that had really never been looked at with sonar before or looked at with video cameras or divers. And so for me, it was about the excitement around targets. So we would tow a side scan sonar system, and back then we had a system called Echo. We would tow it and basically mow the lawn with it, much like we do with our mapping system on Nautilus today. This is using a sort of different technology, using a side scan towfish, and we would get targets. But sometimes those targets wouldn't really reveal, or the information and the data that we collected about those targets wouldn't really reveal exactly what they were. So in the nature of true exploration, it was very exciting to go get our eyeballs on these targets for the very first time. And we had one target that we suspected was a historically significant shipwreck, and one that had never been discovered before because it wasn't in the documented database that we were working off of. And that was called the Corsican. And but we didn't know it was the Corsican. It was called Target 7 at the time. So for me as an explorer, like, coming in on a target, not knowing what it is, and then seeing something like this, the wheel, where the mariners that steered the ship stood at the helm of this vessel. There it was, almost perfectly preserved underwater, magnificent. And so that was super exciting for me, because we were seeing things for the very first time. Nobody had ever seen it before since the day that ship sank, more than 100 years ago. So really exciting times. And we also dove on some other sort of targets and documented other things that we had really no idea about. So it was a lot of fun working with Jeff's team and a historian and archaeologist from the state of Michigan who could really help us identify exactly what we were looking at on all these shipwrecks.
Jeff, I want to hear a little more about that. How do you know which shipwreck this is? Tell us a little more about, what is a historically significant shipwreck, and what's that process look like?
Yeah, and Dwight said, getting those eyeballs down underwater to see it for the first time. And for me, I'm a diver, and I've always been a diver and loved exploring shipwrecks. This is the first ROV expedition I really had a chance to be part of, and just how much more we could see using that technology and have a whole team around and discuss. It just blew me away. And again, we could share those images. But Dwight said, we find it, we look at the target, we get there, and then the real work begins, which isn't on the boat. It's in the archives. It's looking at what we see, taking measurements, comparing to the list of wrecks that we believe sank in the area, and comparing the data we're seeing on the bottom to make that match. And the Corsican was it's in about 160 feet of water. You can just amazing preservation. It was a small schooner, about 112 feet, but just a beautiful one. And Dwight, today we had pretty intense fog here this morning, and I was remembering the story of the Corsican. It sank in a collision in thick fog on Lake Huron, and it gave me a little bit of chills when I was thinking about that this morning. You guys operating out there in the same area right around where the wreck that we're going to talk about today sank. So it's a process where we use history and the archaeology together to tell the story of that wreck.
That's amazing. I'm going to pull in a question of yours sent in. Does Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary keep a list of all of these shipwrecks? Will you remind us how many shipwrecks are there?
Yeah, well, we believe there's about 200 that are out there, and about half of those we know the location of. And as I said in the beginning, and Sarah will talk about this a little more, we want people to go explore these sites. They're incredible recreation places, but what we want to make sure is people do it responsibly. So we put mooring buoys out on many of the sites so people can get access to them and dive, and really have a safe diving experience. And the diver's motto is take only pictures and leave only bubbles. We want to make sure that the next generation of divers can enjoy these sites the same way that we do today.
Jeff, what was it like introducing your community to these sites? I imagine, it's World Ocean Day. We often talk about like our blue backyard, that all of this is, just nearby to our house. There are so many communities right along the shoreline of Michigan looking out and living off of and near the lakes. What's it like introducing new discoveries to these communities?
It's amazing because it's the full community that we are really making this introduction. The divers and the fishermen, they knew these wrecks were here. Not all of them visited them, but we were able to expand that to really the full community, working with school groups, getting kids out on a glass bottom boat, or showing them the videos and really making them understand why these shipwrecks aren't important to just this community. They're important to our nation. It's a national marine sanctuary. And when someone like Dr. Ballard comes in, that reminds these people, our community, just how special this place is and how fortunate we are to live here. It's become a huge part of the community. We have a visitor center we operate where we get about 100,000 visitors a year. It's really been grown into part of the economy. Here you can see our campus right on the Thunder Bay River there. And really, it's one of the largest recreational or tourism attractions in our area of the state. And this experience over the last 20 years of the sanctuary has really been a community effort. The community has supported this all the way through. And I can't wait to see where the technology goes in the next 20 years and what we can do in this community to protect the Great Lakes and their rich history. Because that's where we're really thinking about is we're using these shipwrecks to tell people how important this amazing natural resource that we're sitting next to right now.
That's fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about sanctuary protection, and then we'll pull in a bunch more of these questions. Keep dropping them in the comments. So we keep mentioning National Marine Sanctuary, and for World Ocean Day, we want to celebrate the people that manage and preserve our ocean resources. So I want to introduce everybody to Katie Lohr, who is part of the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries at NOAA. Katie, can you tell us a little bit more about what a National Marine Sanctuary is?
Absolutely. Hi, Megan. So National Marine Sanctuaries are underwater parks that are protected because they have special resources of national significance. And those might be natural resources or historical resources like the shipwrecks here in Thunder Bay. Across the nation, there are 14 National Marine Sanctuaries and 2 Marine National Monuments that are managed by the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. And you'll see a preview of those sites here. They protect everything from vibrant coral reefs to marine mammals like large whales and sea lions, but they're also really important places that people like to go to have fun. So doing things like surfing or scuba diving, kayaking, and everything under the sun. And I really love that about the sanctuary system, that they're so diverse. So whatever critters you're interested in, whether you like warm tropical waters of the Florida Keys, whether you like the cooler waters off the West Coast, there's really something for everyone in the National Marine Sanctuary system. And one of the coolest things I think about the sanctuary system is that you can visit sanctuaries from your very own home through some of our virtual reality programs. So I encourage everyone to check out sanctuaries.noaa.gov/VR. You can take virtual tours of National Marine Sanctuaries, go on virtual dives, and check out some cool 360 imagery from anywhere in the world.
I love it. I love it. So if you are away from your coastline today, or you don't think you can get into National Marine Sanctuary, check those out and celebrate the ocean today in that way. I want to talk a little bit about how these areas get protected. They are spread all across the country. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happens, and if people have a special place that they love in the ocean, how they could maybe get it on this list?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So every sanctuary really starts with a community of people that really care about a special place in the ocean or Great Lakes and want to see it protected for future generations. And there's a process that we call nomination, through which people can propose a new National Marine Sanctuary. So we have a quick video that I think we'll be able to share to tell you a bit more about that process.
This is Edward James Olmos. For the first time in years, the doors open to establish new national marine sanctuaries. I challenge everyone who cares about our nation's ocean and coasts to make your voice heard. This isn't just about the environment. It's about taking a stand for the special places you hold dear. This is your chance to let America know, to let the world know, that this place matters to me. We have an opportunity to make a difference, and it's up to all of us to take responsibility for ourselves and for future generations.
Right. So I really encourage everyone who's interested in learning more about the nomination process to visit that website. Again, if you didn't catch it, it's nominate.noaa.gov. And then once a sanctuary is nominated, the next step is to designate it as a national marine sanctuary. And that process is really collaborative. We work with state governments, local governments, and tribal governments as well, and also the public. So we really want to hear from you during the designation process to understand, we don't have a set management plan for every national marine sanctuary. It's really tailored to each special place and is a really public process. So to learn more about how you can make your voice heard in that process, check out our website, sanctuaries.noaa.gov.
Thanks, Katie. Amazing. So rush out there. This World Ocean Day, maybe we'll get that process started all around the coast and all around the lakes. We always say dive into your national marine sanctuary, and I want to talk a little bit for everyone tuning in or who is planning to take a safe trip up to Michigan and check out Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And I want to introduce the education specialist of Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, Sarah Waters, to tell us a little more. How do you actually get to experience these sites and these shipwrecks? So, hi, Sarah, are you there?
Hi, Megan. Happy World Ocean Day. Yeah, I'm here in the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary Visitor Center. And
what is behind you? Tell me.
This is the schooner Western Hope behind me. And we have 10,000 square feet of immersive exhibits in the Visitor Center. But like you mentioned, there are many great ways for folks to get out in the National Marine Sanctuary. So if you don't have your own research vessel or ASV band like they do in Rogers City, you can take a boat tour. That's one way you can get out. There's a glass bottom boat tour that goes out into Thunder Bay. That's the Lady Michigan right there. And they take people out every day to check out the shipwrecks in Thunder Bay through their glass bottom on the boat. And the Visitor Center, we're about 30 miles south of Rogers City on the shores of Lake Huron, just like where operations are with ASV Ben that you heard Dwight and Jeff talking about earlier. But another way you can get out in the sanctuary, if you don't want to take a boat tour, if you're a paddler, I think Jeff was talking about mooring buoys earlier, and that's a great way. A lot of the shipwrecks in Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary are marked with mooring buoys, and some of them are very close to shore. You can paddle your way out. Just look for that mooring buoy and head out to paddle out to a shipwreck and check it out. And
it is unbelievable. I want to do that.
I know, that looks really great, doesn't it? And sometimes the water is crystal clear, so you don't even need an ROV to see all the details of the timbers there on the Albany. So if you're not a paddler, you can row, or of course you can scuba dive, free dive, or even snorkel. There are lots of shipwrecks. They were talking about deeper wrecks, exploring them with the ROVs, but there's certainly many shipwrecks that are close enough to shore that they're in shallow areas and you can snorkel them very easily. So really, shipwrecks are accessible for all kinds of levels of recreation, depending on what you're looking to do. And you can also stay on shore if you don't want to get wet too. So we have all kinds of trail signs all along the sanctuary coast. So if you're just hanging out on shore on the beach, you can check out what shipwrecks are nearby. It's called the Great Lakes Maritime Heritage Trail. And I think there's some maybe in Rogers City. I think we should have a new one that talks about the explorations going on there now. So we might have to get on that.
That would be fantastic. Okay, we just saw lightning behind you. Tell me what's happening.
Yeah. So the Western Hope has a storm come through, and it's very predictable. It's probably the most accurate forecast at NOAA that there's going to be a storm on this schooner about every 8 minutes.
That's amazing. Sarah, you can answer a question one of our viewers sent in. Mark wants to know, are there any dive sites that recreational divers can go to, or are all of the wrecks deep, like for technical diving?
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty that are 60 feet or less than that, and between 60 and 100 feet, and a great way to kind of plan out your dive or snorkel and where you need to go. We do have a whole list of shipwrecks that have the mooring buoys on our website at thunderbay.noaa.gov, and their coordinates are listed and also their depth, so you can kind of plan out what type of dive you want to do, whether it's from shore or if you're working with a charter dive operator in the area or you have your own boat.
That's fantastic. I have a question for everybody. I want to know a little bit about how you got started in this work. Maybe if everybody could tell me a story about maybe one of their first memories or their first work experiences with the ocean. Tell me a little bit about how you got into this. Sarah, do you want to start?
Oh gosh, sure. So I went into parks and land archaeology, and then I observed a archaeological excavation of a shipwreck in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that was partially submerged and partially on shore, and it was right in the area that I had fished. I probably sat on top of it as a child. And when I saw that going on, I was hooked. I was like, I want to do this maritime archaeology. There I am as a junior archaeologist, just fishing at the Millicocan River that feeds into Lake Michigan on the Great Lakes.
Oh, that was so cool. Katie, how did you get interested in the ocean or in the water?
Great question. So I actually grew up here in Michigan, in Southeast Michigan, just north of Detroit. But I spent a lot of time growing up in the Florida Keys with my family, and became really interested in the resources there. So that's my very first visit to a national marine sanctuary, Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, with my dad and grandpa. And I became really interested in coral reef ecosystems, and actually for the past several years have been working on and studying coral reefs. And that brought me to the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, and the National Marine Sanctuary System ultimately brought me full circle back here to Michigan. So I'm really excited to finally be back in my home state working on sanctuaries.
That is so cool. Jeff, I see you're in a new location.
I had to get out in the sun. It's such a beautiful day. I wanted people to see the sanctuary behind us here. Yeah. So it's amazing. We have 3 Michiganders here, which I think is pretty cool. I grew up outside of Detroit as well. And I started out in engineering and took a couple archaeology classes and just got bit by the bug and had to be part of it. Very similar to Sarah. I started looking into different, there's my son who's a diver now, very excited to share the diving with my family. But I started out in terrestrial archaeology, and I learned how to dive. And then once I got underwater and saw my first shipwreck, that was it. I knew I wanted to work in the oceans. And then being from Michigan and growing up in Michigan, I love the Great Lakes. They're such an amazing thing, and I was drawn back to have my career here.
All right, Dwight, tell us about you. How did you get interested in it?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Rhode Island, so I had spent my whole life really boating and sailing and navigating around Narragansett Bay. But I went to undergraduate at the University of New Hampshire, actually, the partners that we're working here with right now. And I was a mechanical engineering major, and I decided to stick around, I think, the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And I decided to take an oceanography course for fun. And I also took another course to get my scuba certification. And it was a way to enjoy the summer and earn some credits. And I fell in love with oceanography and switched majors like the next fall semester and became a geology major. They didn't have oceanography, but I took a lot of marine science and marine related courses as part of my geology studies, and then went on to grad school and working for Dr. Ballard and doing very exciting things. And this is pretty awesome because here we have Ben, the star of the show, coming.
Oh, I think you froze a little bit. Tell us about Ben a little bit behind you. Everyone, Ben is that yellow boat that's right back behind you.
So they're doing a masterful job of navigating Ben into the pier here. So Ben has been out exploring all along. Behind me to check on, do some CTD casts, but Ben is the bathymetric and explorer and navigator. So this is the University of New Hampshire Center for Coastal and Ocean Mapping's vehicle, ASV, autonomous surface vessel, or autonomous surface vehicle, and it is a remotely operated vehicle and an autonomous vehicle. So we send it out on a mission to map the lake bed, and it's been doing that all day long. We're working in the shipping lane areas off the coast here in this part of Lake Huron. And Ben is coming into the dock right now after being out all day collecting data. And so the team from UNH is actually pulling it alongside, and they're going to check its systems out and download all of its data. And then tonight we'll actually take all that data, and we have a data processing team and several mapping specialists, including Aaron Heffron from Ocean Exploration Trust, and Clint Marcus, who's with UNH and with NOAA, and they'll be processing the data that we collected today, see if we found any new targets, and then turning around the dive basically and getting ready for tomorrow to fill in additional coverage areas that hadn't been mapped before. So this is our second day of operations out here, full day of operations. We're here for another 12 days or so to continue mapping. And it's very exciting because we're collecting great data and hopefully finding some new shipwrecks while we're doing it.
Amazing. Thanks, Dwight. And I'm going to give everybody a preview. If you want to check out another program like this and learn a little more about Ben, we're going to broadcast live again on the 16th. And we'll get you up close to Ben and check out all of its systems, talk with its design engineers to learn a little bit more. I want to answer some of the super good questions that are coming in. Jeff, I want to throw this one your way. Somebody asked, is 200 shipwrecks a lot? If I'm just learning about shipwrecks, is that much more concentrated than normal, or kind of more like average?
It is. They call this area behind us Shipwreck Alley because there's so many shipwrecks, and it's where the shipping lanes, Dwight mentioned, those come together. There's the fog, there's the storm. The lake here can be glass calm one day and 30-foot seas a few days later. So it's a very ferocious area, and it claimed a lot of those shipwrecks over time. So there's a lot of shipwrecks. They represent a pretty good span of history, and they're magnificently preserved. And that's what really makes this a national treasure for the country.
Thank you. Sarah, can you answer for us? Somebody would like to know more about shipwrecks can also be the site of human remains. So how do you balance being able to have recreation and be able to explore sites while also being respectful of those elements of the history?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think Jeff touched on it earlier that we want people to responsibly visit the shipwreck. So that would include being respectful, because some sites, not all of them, but certainly some sites are actual grave sites for the sailors and the passengers that were on those ships. So we ask people to be respectful when they visit and use the resource responsibly, for sure.
Great. All right, Katie, we're going rapid fire. We're coming to you next. Someone would like to know if there are species of fish or seaweed that are surprising to you that you've ever seen on a shipwreck. Do you want to talk a little bit about the kinds of things that are seen in this area?
Sure. I mean, I have to admit that I am still learning about freshwater systems myself, despite growing up here. But shipwrecks are so interesting because they really attract a wide variety of fish species. And that's something we actually explore with our partners at a lot of different national marine sanctuaries, is how shipwrecks act as habitat. And you do tend to find a lot of different types of fish and really large fish at shipwrecks, which is one of the reasons that people really love to go scuba diving and snorkeling and explore shipwrecks.
I do think it's important that the information that we're collecting and the mapping that we're doing out here isn't just to find shipwrecks. We're using that information to share with fisheries biologists, other resource managers. We've made some really interesting geological discoveries. It's also helping our charting as well. So the work we're doing is a multidisciplinary work, and it's, again, about protecting this amazing natural resource behind us.
And Jeff, when we were talking the other day, you mentioned that shipwrecks can kind of be the time capsules, certainly from the past, but they're also helping you track current change in the lakes. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were sharing with me, invasive species, and just what are we learning by knowing where these things are?
For sure. One of the great things about Sanctuaries is we're here and we're looking at a place over time, and as we're addressing giant issues like climate change and invasive species, we're going back to the same places, and we can see how changes are happening. And we have some great images from earlier where we looked at a wreck in early 2000, and we looked at it again several years later. And this is the Kyle Spangler. It's one of those deep shipwrecks, about 185 feet, magnificently preserved. This is an easy one for archaeologists to identify because you can read the name right on the side of it. That doesn't happen very often. But this image here, early 2003 image, and there's no mussels. And the zebra mussel at that time were the main mussel in the lakes, and it had a depth tolerance where it couldn't quite get that far. But just fast forward a few years later, and a new cousin of the zebra mussel, the quagga mussel, had come in, and we went back to the site, and we could see the changes of that. And I think we have an image of that's the exact same spot I showed you a few minutes ago. And so when we're going to these sites, we can report to other scientists, work with our team, really to monitor what's the changes that are happening, not just at the shipwreck, but in the lake.
This is unbelievable. Why aren't they on the name? Why aren't they on the sign?
Well, that's one of the issues that we have with these mussels is that the divers that visit this site, that's a great photo, being able to see that name. And so those mussels have been wiped off by divers, which seems like a fairly innocent thing to do. But every time that happens, those mussels will sometimes remove a little bit of the wreck. If there's paint, they'll remove that, and that can impact the site over time.
Gotcha. One of our most popular questions, and it was like, this is a speed round one, I want to throw it around to everybody, is how do you get your awesome job? If you were going back and giving advice to, let's say, middle school or high school you, to follow a career path in archaeology, in robotics, expedition leading, exploration, all these exciting things that are happening, what advice would you share? Jeff, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I have two. Be passionate. Find something you want to do and go after it full bore. When I decided I didn't want to be a mechanical engineer and I wanted to be an underwater archaeologist, there were a lot of friends and family that mocked that decision, but I went after it hard and kept working towards it. And then the second one is be patient, and the payoff will come later. You sometimes have to do stuff to get to the point you want. And 25 years later, I think I have the greatest job on the planet. I love what I do, and I get to work with these amazing people protecting this amazing place.
Dwight, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I guess hard work pays off. It really does. And if you work hard in your studies and you work hard to go after opportunity, it won't go unrecognized, right? People who are that you're working with or working for will notice that and help you achieve and go to bat for you. So don't be afraid to persevere and overcome those challenges. Don't give up. Work hard. Do the best that you can. Try hard, and that will be noticed. And just try to keep going. If you love something and you're passionate about something, no matter what it is, go for it. And don't be afraid to ask people questions, find a mentor, get advice, and just keep going after those goals. And don't give up. And you'll find your way. And it's very difficult. I think all of us can say that we didn't know what we were going to get into when we were back in high school. And that's very true. But you kind of navigate through college and opportunities, and you find your way, and you stick with it. And that's the best advice I can give.
So good. Sarah.
Boy, those are hard to top. I would have to agree with all that. I'd say also never stop learning. When you get where you want to be, there could be new opportunities right around the corner. So always be ready to learn and keep on moving.
Anchors Home, Katie, what advice would you give to middle school you?
Well, I guess building on Sarah's point about don't stop learning, you never know what skills are going to ultimately be important. So, growing up and wanting to be a scientist, I kind of thought, do I really have to pay that much attention in English class? But writing is such a big part of science, communicating your work, communicating with different types of audiences, being able to, speak with people about your work is so important. So get as many different types of experiences as you can, and it's all helpful and it's all important.
So great. Thank you all for this and for this preview of what's happening right now along the lake shore. So we're just a couple days into the expedition here in Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. There is a lot more left to come. So if you want to follow along, I encourage you to tune in on our social media channels and on Thunder Bay's social media channels at Thunder Bay NMS on Twitter and at EV Nautilus. And this team will be sharing updates of what's happening out at the lake and everything that's happening with Ben. If you want to learn more about the mapping specifically, and maybe even get some sneak previews of some things that have been mapped over this next week. We're going to jump back on here live and talk again next week. And I can't wait to see what you all have accomplished in that time and found. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you all for chatting with me today. So perfect. We'll see you again back here on Nautilus Live and on this live event series for our entire expedition season to share more and answer a bunch more of your questions. So happy World Oceans Day, everyone. We'll see you soon.